Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to our Senior Bowl coverage here on the Falcoholic Live and the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by my co-host Tre'Shon Diaz. We're not technically recording in the same space. Maybe try to do that at some point this week since we are here, but for today it was enough just to get this thing off the ground, guys. Trust me. So, uh, but
That's right.
yes, if you guys notice any problems with the stream, let us know. But as of now, it does appear to be working, so that's always great to see. Tre'Shon, how are you? How are you holding up over in your accommodations?
Doing well over here in the Airbnb. I think the Wi-Fi is strong, so we're hoping that continues through. And excited to talk about what we saw today.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I think that this this class is deep. There's definitely a lot of talent. I also think it's kind of a class that, especially at quarterback, where there's, I think, some disappointment, and then may not be the best group to showcase like everything that these receivers can do. But uh, it was a really good class of defensive linemen, and I
Mm.
have I enjoyed that in particular. A lot of one-on-ones. Obviously, it's the first day, so a lot of install, a lot of special teams work, which you just have to deal with that. But I think this is a very good overall class, and I'm excited to dive into it just because the Falcons need a lot of help defensively, and I think this is one of those classes that I think you really can find a lot of defensive help, especially if you're creative with where you're looking, where you're willing to spend the capital, and hopefully they're able to get some more capital, especially given what we saw today. So.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. This is a draft class where it would be nice to have a lot of day 2, day 3 picks. Falcons don't have that right now, but they could put themselves into a situation where maybe that transpires draft night. Maybe there's moves they make before draft night with some players they have on the roster, maybe shipping some people out, getting some more picks. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they, decide to move this offseason, because there are going to be a lot of guys outside of that first and second round that will play major minutes and start for teams, especially in the interior.
Oh yeah, and that's probably going to be an emphasis today. Obviously, a lot of good edge talent here too, but a lot of great interior players, which is one of my favorite groups to watch. So we got a lot to cover today, guys. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate everyone hanging out today. Real quick before we dive in to the details, want to bring you guys a word from our sponsor, BetOnline. Folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, and UFC. BetOnline is your number one sports betting source for the new year. They've got every touchdown, three-pointer, and hat trick available. And if you could think of it, they probably got some kind of odds on it, right? So go and check them out, betonline.ag. Make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get access to the latest promotions. Bet Online, the game starts here. And of course, want to shout out our new sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, who, I got really hosed this time because I think I lost one of my picks by half a yard. Shout out to the Commanders receiver, De'Ami Brown. I think I needed
Mm.
42 and a half, and he finished with 42 exactly. So somebody knows what they're doing with those lines, that's for sure. But
They're too good. They're too good.
they're just too good. But guys, definitely check out Underdog Fantasy. Obviously, we got one more NFL game to go, but they got a lot more than just NFL there. I know they got a lot of NBA stuff going as well. So we'll do another round of picks, obviously, for the Super Bowl. So I'm looking forward to that. But definitely check out Underdog Fantasy for a unique take on fantasy sports. They also have DFS. They also, of course, have their pick'em style format, which is the one I've been playing. It's a lot of fun, and I like a lot that you can customize the numbers. Maybe I should have dialed those numbers down a little bit, given what happened. So maybe we'll take that into account next week. But make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BIRDS, like Dirty Birds and Brews, BIRDS, to get up to a $1,000 deposit match and one free pick when you sign up using that promo code. So go check it out. And yeah, excited to be working with these guys. So Tre'Shon, Where should we get started today? Should we start off with the heavy hitter and Mike Green? Because I know everyone seems to be obsessed with what he was doing, but uh, is that where
You
we should
know,
go first here?
let's give the people what they want. Let's get into Mike Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, he looked as advertised to me. That man is explosive. He did his signature stuff obviously, and was pretty darn impressive working that speed rush around the outside. And I know a lot of people were happy to see him show up at 250 as well, given some concerns about his playing weight. So I mean, I think day one he did pretty much everything you could ask. So
Yeah. Put the weight concerns to rest. There's been a lot of discussion around the 238. That was the spring measurement from Marshall. We got the updated numbers now. He's 250. He looks 250, and he was moving well. You see the explosiveness, the bendiness. He pulled out the shoulder dip, worked the inside move, had the hezzy with that, and I mean. You see the bag, and you see the pass rush, the DPR ability, and a guy who's just going to be able to get after the quarterback. By my count, he went 2 for 3 today. The rep where I gave it to the O lineman. You saw him try to go speed to power, work the bull rush there. Got some decent movement, but just stalled out about halfway through. And hey, you're not going to win every rep. No one's going to win every rep, and it's how we want to see him bounce back. And that rep was sandwiched between the shoulder dip and the opening inside as he moves. So you like seeing the guy respond. You like seeing him come back and win again at the end. And then the biggest area I think that where people might have their most reservations is with the run. And what he's going to look like in the run game. And today I thought he looked good. I thought it was a really good start. And it's an area that we'll be looking at closely as the week progresses.
yeah. I mean, I think he answered the initial questions quite well in terms of
Yeah.
a lot of folks were wondering, and this always happens with guys, not that Marshall's a small school, but lower level Division One school, there's always the question marks of like, okay, is he just beating up on these different level of competition, essentially prospects? And when he gets, that's why Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl too, um, you know, that's why these events are so important for draft scouts, because it's like we want to see how you look against the best of the best, regardless of that's in the SEC or Big 10 or Big 12 or whatever it is. Um, and I think he obviously looked good today, working against several different tackles. So I think he answered that first question very well. And excited to see more. I think he's one of the guys with some of the most to gain in terms of, I think he's definitely starting to get that first round hype, but Edge 2 is kind of wide open. I mean, given
Feels
I
that
mean,
way.
Abdul Carter's Edge 1, we know that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for Mike Green. For that's part of the reason I'm kind of surprised Nick Scourton ended up pulling out of the event, is because it's like, you had an opportunity to potentially cement yourself as a top 10 pick with a really strong week here, whether it's Scourton, whether it's Mike Green. Obviously, Shamar from Texas A&M showed up as well, and
Yeah.
he was here today, and we'll talk about him too. But you know, a lot to gain potentially. I mean, I understand some guys, like, a lot of people questioning like, oh, why is Cam Ward not there? Because he doesn't need to be, right? If you're QB1 or like in that conversation, you don't need to be here. Same thing with some of these top guys. It's just like that you don't have too much to gain. But I do think that some of these guys did have a lot to gain, so I was kind of surprised not to see
I
them.
agree.
But I think starting off, really impressed by Mike Green, and showed you what you wanted to see against a higher level of competition. And if he keeps this up, I mean, I sorry guys, might be gone before Atlanta's on the board at 15 if he continues on this trajectory, which would be unfortunate, but it does mean someone else that the Falcons like might be there. So
Yeah, and that's just part of it, right? The nice thing about this draft class is that there are options at edge. There's more than 2, 3, 4 guys. You can get pretty deep in this class. And it's going to be interesting to see, because a couple of those guys are here, and one of those guys like you were just talking about, Stewart, it's going to be really interesting to see how the kind of week he's having. He's generating some buzz as well. just moves really well for a guy his size. So, there's going to be options. Don't worry. Don't try to fall in love with just one prospect. Make sure you look at all of them, because there's going to be enough talent this year for the Falcons to be able to snag a good player.
Yeah, that's nice. And I do think this is definitely a draft class where we're going to have this conversation throughout the offseason is, is a trade down worth it here? And I think,
Mm.
what we're seeing today from these guys, and there's definitely some guys, here at the Senior Bowl or otherwise that are going to be that sort of 15 to 30 range type of players. There's enough of those guys where it's like maybe you are willing to trade down there, and because you're looking at some of the deepest positions in the draft in terms of edge and the interior defensive line, probably with that first round pick. Whereas some teams, if you need a top wide receiver, this is a good wide receiver class, but like once you get past some of those top guys, there is a noticeable drop off. So, Atlanta
Yeah.
may have an opportunity to a tackle needy team, like offensive tackle or wide receiver needy team, to trade down to get one of these guys if they do fall, and potentially make a great move there, get some plus value, get that day 2 pick that they traded for Judon back potentially. But yeah, really excited about what we saw from Mike Green. Yeah, who's someone you want to go to next? There's a number of guys I think we could highlight today.
Yeah, I believe it's pronounced Baron Sorrell out of Texas. He was somebody, I didn't do a ton of work on him before coming in. Very productive college football player. He had a really good day. Thought he had some good answers in the pass rush session. Really liked what we saw from him. He's somebody that I'm excited to learn more about this week. And another edge. Well, you know what? Why don't you go? Why don't you pick up for Stewart there, since you already mentioned him earlier?
Yeah, I mean Stewart. Well, he's huge. I
Yeah,
mean, I think we knew that, but he's
big boy.
huge, and that's gonna help him obviously stand out in this class, and just overall. But it's kind of like he's so big that I almost wonder if like maybe the Falcons have too many of this guy. Like we already don't use Zach Harrison, so do we need another one? But I mean, he is really interesting. I mean, just a dominant run defender. You can see that he does have some pass rush juice to him as well. Not nearly as polished there, and obviously at 290, you're not expecting the same type of pass rush as you are when you watch Mike Green versus Shamar
Yes.
Stewart. But he's impressive in his own way, and I do think he's gonna have a lot of fans coming out of this week as well. I did want to touch on like one of the more, I think, polarizing guys from today, and that would be, I think, Deion Walker from Kentucky, who did have like one great rep and then lost a couple reps, and I think that kind of encapsulates Deion Walker pretty well at this point. But I'm curious what you thought about his day.
Yeah, had a lot of hype after the 2023 dominant season. 2024, looked a little bit more inconsistent, and I'm gonna have to agree with you. I'm not sure that this is, the player that he was billed to be coming into this season. It looks like there's, I don't even know if it's necessarily regression more than just competition, especially in his class at the position, is really good this year. There are a lot of guys who are going to be, noses 1 through 3s, and you're just going to see, once those other players also start showing up, the margins are going to start getting thinner for somebody like Walker, who really needs to have more consistency. I'm with you. I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say that. I don't think it was a bad day, and I don't think anybody really thought it was a bad day. But like to your point, just kind of looks like, win some, lose some. Not really seeing the dominance that we saw in 2023, and that a lot of people were hoping to see from here. Another interior defensive lineman that I thought did have a good day was Cameron. Cameron Jackson from Florida.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, liked what we saw from Cameron. Thought the swipe was nice. Thought it was fun. He's got power. Another really big guy. Another guy like in that Deion Walker kind of mold where you're going to see these noses, these these one techs, they're really gonna be competing hard for who's gonna be going first, second, third throughout this draft class, because there's a lot of nose tackles in this
Yeah.
draft class.
A lot of size. Like Deion Walker obviously is like probably the largest one, but I mean, you look around, like Cameron Jackson's a good example. I mean, you go to the other roster, we saw like Joshua Farmer from Florida State. He certainly looks the part. I thought Jamari Caldwell from Oregon looked really good. And those are like just Senior Bowl guys. Like that's, I think, four, probably guys that are going to be drafted, relatively
there's Jordan
early.
Phillips and
Yeah.
CJ West Jr. down at Shrine. I mean, there's a lot of guys.
Yeah. And there's a lot of depth there. So to me, this is like, oh, this is finally the year. I feel like every year for the past like 4 seasons, I've been mocking a nose tackle to the Falcons, and they finally do take one in Zion Logue, late, and then they just put him on the practice squad and lose him. So, yes, technically, I guess they fulfilled it, but this year maybe they'll actually draft one early enough that they want to keep him around. I sent them JJ Pegways from Ole Miss, who seemed like he had a great day at a great week at the Shrine Bowl too. So, just a lot of guys. I think that it's a good interior class, and we didn't even talk about the non-nose tackles because, like, I think Ainias Peebles from Virginia Tech. I mean, he had 2 back-to-back plays in full team drills towards the end of the first practice. He just blew up the play. Like, the second play he got doubled and just split the double completely. He's like, I know he gets Kalijah Cansey comps a little bit, and I can see it. Very undersized, but lightning quick player. He's definitely someone that piqued my interest today.
Yeah. I like you said, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches. And maybe it's a good transition to a group where I don't necessarily feel as strong about with this draft class, which would be linebacker. We did see some today, and Shamar James out of Florida is somebody that I was interested in. I think that he can fill that will linebacker role. I thought he looked well, moved well in the pass coverage drills. These are the one-on-one drills with linebackers and running backs are often funny to me because these guys will never have this much time to run a route pretty much at any point in their NFL career. So you do have to like really focus on more of the player's process from the defender standpoint than really just like, oh, okay, well, the guy caught the ball, or, the guy was able to end up getting, the catch after he was able to, keep running the drag route for 8 seconds. And James moved well. Felt like he was one of the few guys that didn't really let the receiver fully dictate what was going to happen on the reps. Did a really good job staying patient, and was in the hip pocket for pretty much the entire time. Really only lost one of those reps, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think like linebacker is a big need for this Falcons team, and we joked, it's like, oh, whoever the fastest linebacker is, they got Dan Quinn football coming back with Jeff Ulbrich, so they're just gonna go after whoever that is. But they do need a linebacker for real, and I do think that's going to be a priority for them. But like you said, it's not as deep of a position this year. Don't really think it's. I mean, maybe Jahan Campbell like lifts himself into that range by the time it's all said and done. But ultimately, I think most likely we're gonna see the Falcons go after it. On day 2, potentially. I mean, they need more picks to do that more than likely. But if they get more picks, I could see, Chris Paul Jr., he just feels like
he was a guy.
Yeah, that's a guy, obviously did a good job at the Shrine Bowl, but that's a guy that just feels like the type of linebacker they want. So I could definitely see that one happening.
Yeah, Carson Schweiswinger, who unfortunately, because this is what happens when you get these weak position groups, you see guys whose agents are like wanting to take advantage of it. He's somebody I was excited to see here in Mobile. I had a couple question marks about his game, how he reads leverage, when he's in coverage and things like that. Unfortunately, he was a late pullout, so we're not going to get to get a really good dive on him. So, I'm happy for the guys that we will get to see here, because I agree with you, Kevin. I think unless they pull some levers, get the trade down going, and then maybe you trade down for Campbell in the first or something like that. Unless something like that happens, I do think that you're really going to be seeing them kind of target on that day 2 range. And there are a couple of really nice day 2 guys, Chris Paul Jr. being one of them. Shamar James is somebody who I think could maybe find himself in that role as well. I think he's somebody that is going to test well, and I'm with you. We're looking for that Deion Jones mold of a linebacker, and it's going to be tough to find.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, no doubt about it. They need it. They're gonna have to find it somewhere. I know there was there's some speculation about, do the Falcons go after, the Jets linebacker? Now I can't think of his name. I just brought him up and forgot his name. But whatever his name is, I think it's Jamian or whatever.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I've got
Sherwood,
you. I'm gonna look
maybe.
at that name.
I forget, but yeah, he's good. Do the Jets let him walk? That's another question entirely. But that he's someone that you'd love to have. But do you want to spend a bunch of money on off-ball linebacker? That's another question. But taking a quick look at some chat questions. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Appreciate the love, William Roller. And Tesh Desai asks about Landon Jackson. Heard he had a bad day. What do you think? I mean, I would agree with that take. I also think it's kind of a little, I wouldn't draw any conclusions from day one. But
yeah.
And this is something we actually talked about during practice, was I think you're pretty high on Landon Jackson, and I'm just not totally sold on him as a pass rusher. But what did you think about Landon Jackson today?
Yeah, Landon is somebody that I was very intrigued with coming into the week. And it's not so much that I thought it was bad, but it was just more so left feeling like unimpressed, left feeling like there was maybe some reps that he left on the field. And, I agree with you, Kevin. First of all, every Senior Bowl, there's always somebody that comes out day one flat. And it's just not, it looks off. Something's weird. And, you got to remember, it's install day. Guys are working with coaches they don't know, working with teammates they don't know. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to adjust. And he's somebody that I think maybe, throughout the week he gets better. But today, probably he would tell you himself he did not have the day that he wanted to have, and didn't start off well. But I didn't see a bad football player. I just saw somebody who just didn't really look, prepared or ready for the environment. And sometimes that happens at All-Star week, but he's somebody we're going to keep tabs on as the week goes on. So we're going to hopefully see that he progresses, because he is a guy who, maybe, unthinkable, but maybe the Falcons double dip at edge, and maybe he's somebody that they get on that second pick. Maybe they could get him day 2, something like that. But we got to see it first before we get there.
Yeah, I agree. And he's got ample opportunity over the rest of the week to improve and get better. And I think that he will. And yes, it is actually Tejas, not Tesh or whatever I was going for. It's Tejas. I like that's a sweet name. I like that. So yes, I can definitely handle Tejas. That's not too difficult for me. There's some doozies in this Senior Bowl roster too. So we've been getting our pronunciation practice in this week. But I mean, just some other questions here. Robert Kelly asked, what do you think about James Pierce from Tennessee? Was he there? He's not here. I would have loved to see him here. That would have been awesome. I think he's probably feels like he's above this, and he's probably right. But unlike Mike Green, who, I think needed to have a good day here to really lift himself into that top 15 range, I think James Pierce is probably if Mike Green didn't do it, it was probably going to be James Pierce just by default. So I do really love James Pierce. I mean, I took him in the first mock draft at 15 for the Falcons. So he's definitely a guy that I like and think he's had a good season. Unfortunately, we don't get to see him here. And Zach Mosk, on the topic of Mike Green, asked, would you prefer Jaylen Walker or Mike Green if they're there? And we actually talked about Jaylen Walker too while we were at practice, so I know
Yeah.
what your answer is going to be, but but you can
Yeah,
say
it's gonna be Mike Green for me. And yeah, Jaylen Walker he's just not a refined pass rusher. He doesn't offer, the pass rush ability that Green does, and you're gonna have to figure out what to do with him. It's not a plug and play player, and if the Falcons had some other guys either established at off ball or at edge, I'd feel a little bit better about a Walker pick, but I just don't think that he is a top 15 prospect for this team. And I think that he's somebody that, just is too much for them to take on with the needs that they have. Mike Green is going to offer you the instant impact as a DPR. And that's like more than anything. Even if Mike Green couldn't play the run to start off, they need somebody who can at least play the pass.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think we talked about it, and Jaylen Walker, I'm really excited to see his testing because I think that's going to be critical for his draft stock.
I agree.
But Jaylen Walker is just we didn't see enough, on tape, really. I think to get this hype. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people in here are Georgia fans. You guys have probably watched a lot more Jaylen Walker than I have. So, I didn't think that he was polished enough or good enough at either spot really to justify the like top 15 hype. That's not to say he's not going to go in the first round. I mean, I think we've seen that teams are willing to take chances on these Georgia guys, and especially these.
Yeah.
If he tests if he jumps out the gym, all bets are off about where he goes because of his potential. But I do think Mike Green to me is it's weird that you would get a Marshall pass rusher and say that he's more polished and all this, but he is. He just legitimately is. And part of that, I think, is, Georgia just made Jaylen Walker play all over the place. And it's tough to develop when you're being asked to do a lot. But, I know he was trying to help the team and do whatever they needed him to do. And that's, scouts like that. But it's also hard to scout that. You're watching a guy play off ball and trying to play edge at the same time. It's tough. But, I do think Mike Green's definitely going to go first at this stage of the process.
Yeah, and that's kind of, and I know we have a lot of Georgia fans, and Georgia fans, you do know this. Georgia is kind of weird with how they use their best defenders or best athletes that they have. We saw it with Trayvon Walker, and Trayvon is somebody that you've seen him now as it's progressed. He's hitting that mark that you want. He's kind of starting to live up to that role. I know Aiden Hutchinson has obviously looked awesome, but I think Trayvon Walker has been really underrated. Double-digit sack guy now at this point, really good in the run. And again, Nolan Smith, another guy where he was kind of used a little weird. You don't really know what to do. And we've seen what the Falcons have done with projects in years past. They love to take projects. It's just not really the time for projects anymore at this point. You have to get somebody that can play right away. And another guy that both Kevin and I know Aaron Freeman as well, who was with us today, have all been kind of waiting to see something for is Princely Uman Nilian.
I think it's
Did I get that
Uman
right?
Mielen or something
Uman
like that.
Mielen. Princely
Yeah.
Uman Mielen. He's somebody who I thought it was like pretty neutral in terms of like the kind of day he had. Didn't really see much, but he's somebody else that we're going to be watching this week, where he's a guy that again feels like possibly first round trade down. Maybe he's edge 3, edge 4. Sometimes in some drafts, edge 3, edge 4, you're like, in this class, edge 3, edge 4, you're like, okay, I could still work with that. Especially again, if you're getting the instant pass rush ability, then you can bring them along in the run game after that. So, just looking for somebody who's a bit more refined with that first pick in terms of edge rusher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think this is a great class to trade down and still get edge rush help. And Princely's a guy like, I think he and James Pierce are pretty similar. I think it's funny because I think last year, like, I feel like Princely is kind of like James Pierce last year, like 2023 James Pierce. And like, you're kind of hoping that Princely becomes 2024 James Pierce, where, Pierce last year, I think, was looked at as this guy that's like, well, he's a great pass rusher. There's no doubt about that. But man, he can't hold up against the run. And I think this year you saw Pierce make a concerted effort to improve against the run. And I think it paid off for him for sure. And Princely, still is kind of, he needs to take that next step against the run. But again, like teams aren't afraid to take just pass rush specialists, especially and think that they can teach them how to defend the run.
And
Princely's
honestly, I kind of
obviously,
like Princely more.
I mean, I
Still,
get it.
even
Yeah, I think Princely has
like,
a little bit
but
better
that's definitely
size.
based on
Yeah.
projection because I'm with you. I'm like, it's not all the way there yet. I'm definitely like looking, ahead, and some things have to happen. But I'm a fan, but we definitely need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. And Princely could obviously is another guy that could get a big boost this week if he has a strong second and third day. Mad Tom K with the $5. Thank you, Mad. MTK says, were there any offensive tackles that looked interesting as developmental day 3 guys? Well, before, the practice would have been like, oh, like Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. He's got some hype. Maybe he could be someone that's man, he was so good today that he might be playing himself out of that day 3 range if this continues.
He may have played himself up into day 2.
Yeah. So he's obviously someone that has kind of been an under the radar guy, but probably not for much longer. He was holding his own. I get in a group that's got a lot of good tackles, and obviously Jonas Savanea from Arizona was impressive, and Emory Jones from LSU was what you would expect.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks great. But yeah, Carson Vincent looked the part. I mean, he looked like he absolutely was in the same conversation with those guys, and that's no small compliment. So, I watch the rest of these guys. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned Ariante he was shut down. Man, just he's got the drip. I mean, I don't know what to say. That like golden gopher helmet, with like the smiling gopher on like just the huge, like the blown up gopher on one side of the helmet, and he wears 69. It's like, I mean, he's number 1 overall. I mean, I've seen enough. So,
and day 3 tackles in this class is this tackle class is thin. So whatever you're going to get on day 3, if you go after it, it's going to be a big project. And with the Falcons like lack of picks, I do wonder if that would be better served for getting one of these interior guys that's probably going to end up falling, because you're going to have a better chance at getting some solid talent in that round versus when you're looking at the tackle. It's just not a great tackle class. There's guards for days. If we needed a guard on day 3, then this would be the time to do it. And we're looking a little because who knows what happens with New Zealand, who knows what happens with Dahlman. So not turning a total blind eye to centers and guards this draft. I think I think I would tell fans the same thing, is to just kind of be ready, kind of just have some eyes on some guys, because if one of those 2 are out the door, then I do expect the team, well, they'll have to look at a center at that point, whether they lose either of them.
Yeah. Again, we talked about it. Like I think there's very little chance they let Dahlman walk. I think they would tag him before they let him walk. But Newsell's an open question. I think it really depends on like if he gets offers, good offers elsewhere. They may not have the cap to throw at him, but I think they would obviously like to have him back for the continuity. And I mean, honestly, like he was a fine fill-in center. I mean, like he held down the fort in Dahlman's absence for quite a while, and it wasn't Drew Dahlman level play. It's funny because like the pass protection I think was about the same. It's average-ish to above average, but you could really feel it in the run game without Drew Dahlman out there. But
are they able to put a tender on New Zealand? Is he restricted?
Yeah, I think he might be an RFA, because if he was just an exclusive rights guy, like they would just easily make the decision to re-sign him, I imagine. But I'm curious to see what they do with Newsell, because I think it's a very bring him back, obviously.
I think that's definitely like, I'm with you. I think they want to have both of them back in the building, if possible. So that's definitely going to be the optimal the optimal route. I'm just trying to think like if there is anything comp pick formula wise or anything tender wise factoring in that could be the only way, or that not only way, but that could be, a way for them to kind of view it as wanting to get, an extra pick for this draft class. But again, that's a guy going out that you have to replace. So, if you're losing that, you're going to have to spend, whether it's picks or money, some form of assets, on getting something back for that. So I agree that I think, overall the best plan would be to just have him back.
Yeah, I think that's like I feel like they're just gonna run it back entirely on Falcons offensive line. Like they're gonna bring back Storm, they're gonna bring back News, they're gonna bring back Dahlman. Just run it back, and then keep it going. Don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We got enough problems. We got enough
Yeah.
problems as it is without creating new ones. So I'm definitely curious to see what they end up doing there. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with the offensive line. But another like a guy maybe if you're thinking about sleepers like Zabel from North Dakota State, like they played him at center, guard. I think they played him at center and both guard spots. I'm pretty sure he's like never played center, and he was
Yeah, I
like,
don't think he has.
and he looked fine. I mean, like obviously it's 1-on-1s or whatever. He's not having to set protections or do any craziness, but he definitely held his own. So that's maybe a name to watch. This is a very very thin center class, and he's someone that could really benefit by proving he could play center. So we will see how that develops, but that one's definitely interesting to me.
Your camera's still switched, I believe, Kevin. I don't know if that's intentional, but
Oh,
just be the heads
yeah,
up.
yeah. For whatever reason, that one switched back to something else when I had to fix my other one. That's fine. I'll fix it. But yep. But yeah, trying to think of other guys.
And I'm trying to think. That's what just came to me last time we were here together was the Cody Malk Senior Bowl, and he was a guy who North Dakota State was only a tackle, kicked him inside, made himself a lot of money. So I'm with you. I think Zabel's going to be a guy who you could see him really making some money by doing that. He's following in his former alumni's footsteps. And yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of really good interior O linemen in this class. So if anything were to happen, I do feel confident that they could find answers. Again, it just comes down to asset restraints and what are you going to do to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I don't know if they're do they get any more picks, because then we can start having conversations about addressing some other needs. But at this point, it's like, well, it's probably going to be defensive line and a linebacker, and they'd really like to add a safety or a slot corner. But I mean, again, it's like this is gonna like I feel like that they're gonna have a hard time squeezing anything else in. Even if they do get a third or a second in like a trade down, or trade Kyle Pitts for some picks or whatever it is that they do to get more picks. But um, at maybe then you could address the needs that are glaring. But it's like I'm having a hard time fitting in anything else, even like a day three. Obviously 7th round picks you can just throw them at whatever you want, but I'm not sure you want to be relying on like a 7th round tackle to be anything more than like a practice squad or like last man on the roster type of guy. So we'll see how that develops, but
Any DBs or safeties that did stick out to
yeah.
you today? You did just mention slot corner and safety, and I know you posted that nice highlight as well. You got the
Yeah, Billy
interception.
Bowman. That was
Mhm.
a sick interception. Undercut that route perfectly. So he's someone I have not really familiar with, but yeah, Oklahoma's Billy Bowman was impressive to me. I like the two UCF corners as like kind of mid-round guys, Brandon Adams and Mac McWilliams. I think they're interesting. I think you and I were probably both staring at the D line like almost entirely.
Yeah,
So,
just so you guys
outside of
know,
like,
me and Kevin
yeah,
we are watching those defensive linemen
yeah,
and
we
edges.
were
We are
watching the D
not,
line. Yeah, yeah,
entertaining too much of these receivers and stuff,
yeah.
which, there's no way that comes back again.
Yeah, they're definitely going to go, DB in the 1st round or wide receiver, but yeah, it's a good group. I'm definitely going to pay more attention to them going forward, and we'll probably get more team like stuff as we go along as well. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how they look. But yeah, I think Billy Bowman stood out, and you know, I think from I can't remember who it was on the national. Quincy Riley had like a sick like pass breakup to end practice. And I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Azaria Thomas, my Niceville football alumnus. So shout out. And I know Darian Porter has a ton of fans. He did measure in as like a legit 6'4". I think Dorian Strong had a good day. He was one of the more consistent guys, I think, from that group. So I mean, lot of good talent here. Is just like, man,
Yeah.
where can you fit this guy into the Falcons draft plans at this point? That's kind of the only question.
Yeah. Yeah, Trey Rucker was a late ad from Oklahoma State. He's somebody who I'm like, okay, I've seen a lot of his game. Interested to see how he does in this environment. Would kind of put him in as one of those day 3 guys as of right now. So, maybe the Falcons run it back with Bates and Helms, and then maybe they find another Helms in that late day 3, something like that they look for. And there's going to be multiple ways that they can kind of play this offseason.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see which route they take. Because they're going to have to spend. First, they're going to have to come up with cap space. Then they're going to have to spend the cap space. Then they're going to have to draft. So, obviously, after free agency, that gives us a little clearer of a picture. Or so we thought, last year. After they signed Kirk, we were like, okay, we can take all the quarterbacks off the board. And we saw how well that worked out for us. But, yeah, I do think this is a good class to take a DB, like a safety or something. It's not a very deep, like, slot group. I know, like Elijah
Huzzie.
Yeah, he seemed like one of those guys. It's probably going to be day 2 slot corner now because there just isn't much depth at slot corner. Obviously,
he was having a
Ja'Day
good
Barron,
time.
he's not at these events, but Ja'Day Barron, I think at 15 is absolutely in play.
It's on the table. Be ready. If
Yeah,
Will
be ready
Johnson
for
or
that
Barron
one.
are there, like
yeah,
the DB staff might win the fight. But we have some linebacker coaches now, so they might have to shove those little corners in the closet and get us some edge players, get us some linebackers, please.
Yeah, no, that was the other edge guy I wanted to mention was Donovan Ezuraku from Boston College. He had a sick, like, just broke the hands with like his left hand and just went straight to the quarterback. I mean, it was like he looked like the tackle barely touched him. Yeah, I know someone was asking about David Walker. David Walker was fine. I mean, he didn't have like a dominant rep today like some of these guys, but I mean, he was fine. He didn't look out of place either. And I know that's important for him, obviously, kind of trying to be like a day 2 version of Mike Green. Another like super productive guy from a smaller school. So I know you're a fan of Colin
David's
Oliver
really
too, so.
interesting, man.
Yeah.
Walker is like really, Walker, and then like Oliver, I think is kind of in that similar mold. Oliver, I'm gonna be honest, and I just like I do not think that he is quite the athlete that we'll probably see that Georgia Walker. Now I can't think of his name because I have Trey. Yeah, Jaylen. I replaced it with Trayvon earlier, and I'm gonna be honest. Colin Oliver has like if Walker had Oliver's bag as a pass rusher, I would feel better. Colin Oliver was Big 12 newcomer of the year as a freshman, double-digit sack guy. Then he was moved and played off ball. He's been playing edge. They've got him at edge here. He is somebody that offers you some versatility. More of an undersized guy, doesn't really fit the mold of what we typically go after, but is one of those guys that you feel like you wouldn't have to do as much work with. And his teammate, Nick Martin, is the other linebacker that I'm going to be paying close attention to this week. Just really solid build. I mean, the dude is just really strong. And like, I love how he plays the game. Just going to have to see if he's able to do the coverage work, because that is going to be the biggest requirement, I feel, for whatever linebackers we are looking at.
Yeah. And I know Jeffrey Bossa from Oregon was timed as like the fastest, linebacker here. So obviously mark him down for this Dan Quinn fast and physical linebacking corps here in Atlanta. But no, he is actually an interesting day 2 potential guy, Bossa. And then Syracuse's safety, Justin Barron, they actually have him playing linebacker. I mean, he was like a huge safety at Syracuse. He was like 230. So I'm curious to see how he looks playing just like off-ball linebacker. here. I think that's an opportunity for him to maybe become like one of those star type guys that, is kind of like a hybrid safety linebacker. Think like a bigger DeMarco Helms, basically. That's a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So, that could be interesting.
That would be.
That's definitely something that a lot of teams like to deploy. Use that as like their nickel defender, against teams that like to play heavier. So, maybe I don't know. Maybe should we mention like some offensive players?
Well, yeah. You know what?
We talked about offensive tackle.
We talked about tackle. Any tight ends, Kevin? Any tight ends? Any wide tight ends? Or just tight ends in general? Anything you see?
I mean, Elijah Arroyo was like, just dunking on linebackers and safeties in
Yeah.
coverage, so that was interesting. He's definitely one of the more like intriguing tight ends. I didn't see a ton of Harold Fannin in like the team stuff. I think he was cooking guys in one-on-ones, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
But Fannon's like one of those guys. It's like, wow, he could be like elite or just like disappear entirely in the NFL.
I'm worried about Fannin.
Not
I'm
sure.
gonna be honest.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
I'm not sure. I'm a little nervous, but I know he's somebody who I think we already have Kyle Pitts, so I'm really hoping they're not looking at Fannin. I'm hoping they're not looking at Fannin. I'm looking for that more of that like inline guy. And I'm with you. I feel like I haven't really seen anybody stand out. Doesn't really feel like I don't really even know if this is a strong wide tight end class. I have not gotten into the tight ends too much yet. I know there's Warren. Everybody loves Warren. I think that's like the guy. I think that he's probably going to be the best. I think he's the best tight end in this class because he can do it all. But outside of him, tight end is a tough position to judge. Luke Leshy out of Iowa, shocker, at Shrine looked good. He didn't catch pass all year, so seeing him have some nice hands catches at Shrine, I was like, okay, all right, we'll jot that down. We'll see, maybe a little Charlie Warner push. Ross Dwelly replacement because we ain't doing that. We are not running that back.
They tried to make Ross Dwelly a thing, and
they tried too hard.
That didn't last very long. Yeah, they were like, okay, this guy is not playable. I know, like Jackson Hawes is really well known as like this just lunch pail blocking tight end. So I wasn't really watching, to be honest, today, but he's someone that I know if you're looking for that blocking tight end, he might be the guy you want. Georgia Tech, we know they're gonna. Georgia Tech doesn't put tight ends on the field that don't block, so I expect that he will. He's a good blocker because of that.
Anybody that had to deal with Zeke Biggers in practice is probably like, I'll take, I'll look at you.
Yes, exactly. So I do you think that could be someone later in the draft that they look at, but yeah, I mean. Otherwise, I think really like the only positions they'll be like seriously considering, this is such a deep running back class that like I don't think you should rule out them taking a running back with like one of their sevenths because Jace McClellan, I mean, he doesn't really move the needle for me at all. So like
I need my third running back to have like with something. What we have in the room, the third guy's got to be the speed guy, man. Yeah. That's got to be. Yeah. That's got to be like you just need somebody to have that gear, and it just feels like we don't really have. We're kind of missing that element on the team in general. Yeah. And I'm with you. I think you can find, hey, maybe this guy can't play on the offense right away or anything like that. Especially with Bijan and Tyler, and again, even if it's somebody who's more of a scat back, kind of does some receiver slot work, whatever. Those are the kind of guys where, hey, there are a embarrassment of riches in terms of this running back group that you could see a 7th round. You could see, maybe they're able to get a good UDFA, but it's going to be really competitive, this UDFA market. So maybe you do use one of those 2 7ths and get that returner, that dynamic piece that you're just kind of missing.
Yeah. No, I look at like LaQuint Allen from Syracuse. He's one of the best receiving backs in the class. Smaller. Speedy back, obviously not a 3-down workhorse type of guy, but someone that in a draft class like this could possibly fall a little bit. I think running back in general, like a lot of people are like, oh, running backs are going to fly off the board. It's like, It's usually not what happens in a class this deep. Usually teams just wait. Now, obviously, if you want Ashton Jeanty, you're going to have to take him early. But the rest of these
Yeah.
guys, I think there's going to, the guys fall in these deep classes because teams are like, well, there's so many good ones. Why do we need to run out to get the second or third one in a class where the eighth one is startable in the NFL? So, yeah, I like Quinn Allen. I think he could be interesting. So we'll see. There's a lot of guys in this class that could be potential late round, starters. I mean, in the NFL, we running back is one of those positions where you can find guys like that regularly. And I wonder if this is the year for some of those sort of sneaky late round guys to come in and make some waves. Hopefully they don't make too many waves on the Falcons, because that probably means something terribly wrong has happened, given the Falcons depth chart. But never bad to have insurance. Never bad to have insurance. So.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, guys, we will watch receivers at some point for a little bit, I promise.
Yes.
And if we have to. It sounded like Jaylen Knoll had a good day, receiver out of Iowa State. Or actually I believe it was Jaden Higgins. I don't think it was Knoll, but see, this, like I told you, I will be paying closer attention to the receivers moving forward. Don't really have as much information for you on that group.
Yeah, there's a Jaden and two Jaylens,
Yeah,
but all on the same team, so that it wasn't helping either today.
no, it was not.
Which one? Oh, it was Jay. Jay who? Well, Jayden, Jaylen Knoll, Jaylen Lane. Yeah. So it is a good wide receiver group here. I was upset that Alec Yomanor didn't show.
Yeah.
That would have been nice to see him. But yeah, I mean, I get it. He's probably going to be a first round pick, so whatever. But yes, and Tez Johnson is tiny. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That man is small. There's no way to get around that fact. So
no, there's not. Yeah,
he's a small one. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting seeing the CFL quarterback out there, Taylor Aglersma or whatever. He looks like an NFL quarterback. I mean, he's big and he's got some zip to his passes, but that's going to be one of those interesting things to watch, because I didn't even know this guy was on the radar until he showed up. So I mean, what an opportunity for him getting to come down to Mobile. So yeah, that is one of the more interesting developments I've seen is getting us a Canadian college quarterback here at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and just if you're looking for a QB take, I think Dylan Gabriel was the best of the day. Really, really nice accuracy in that first practice session. He, and you like to see that in this environment, because you want to see these receivers at cornerbacks get some legitimate reps in, get some good balls thrown, and kind of see who can make the play. And Gabriel so far, he's looking solid. Undersized guy. Who knows? He's a lefty. Maybe he's, you always need insurance at the quarterback position. You can never be too safe. So, hey, maybe he sparks some interest around some buildings.
Maybe it's entirely possible. UCF legend Dylan Gabriel. So yeah, I mean, he is a lefty, like you said. I'm just saying, right? Lefty quarterback, lefty backup, I don't know. It seems like, I mean, it just makes sense, right?
Smooth
transition. Yeah. Unfortunately, the state of this quarterback class means Dylan Gabriel is probably going the second round. So
there's a good chance that somebody's gonna, this is very much feels like it's such a weird class. It feels like a combination of Desmond Ritter's class with the Mariota Jameis class.
Yeah.
It just feels like, I don't know, it's just kind of gross. And hey, maybe, it's a good lesson in, our staff actually did see this one coming with the Penix pick, because could you imagine if we had the season we did and then we're sitting here telling ourselves, Dylan Gabriel's actually really undervalued. Selling the coke.
I could see it, as long as is, no. I think the correct answer is actually no. Like, none of these quarterbacks are starting caliber, so you have to trade for Kirk Cousins. That's the narrative I'm going to push, regardless of if it's true or not. That's the narrative I have to push for the team. So
Do
I will
what's best
fall
for
on the Kirk Cousins sword. That's my job here. But yeah, it was a fun day. It started off kind of cool, and then it got to be kind of hot. So that's a little interesting. Um, Sunny, you love to see that. Some years it's been kind of rainy here, so we'll hope that the weather holds. But yeah, anything else you want to touch on day one before we sign off?
Um, yeah, the only thing I would say is, like, we both talked about it, but day one is typically the slower day. Everybody's getting comfortable, stuff's getting installed. We're gonna have a really good idea, after day two and day three as to what we're looking at, who's really standing out above the competition. Guys are gonna learn each other's tricks a little bit better. I'm interested to see how the O-line responds to Mike Green. If Mike Green's able to compound day one with day two with another solid performance, maybe he's a guy that maybe he doesn't play the game. We do always see guys, kind of pull out at some point. I don't think anybody, he's one of the few people I think that could be on the edge of that territory. And, Mike Green might want to play the whole week. I'm not sure, as to what he wants to do, but, just don't worry too much about what you see online over what happened today, because we're going to get a much better idea of, like, who these guys really are as the week goes on.
Yeah. No one's gonna remember that someone had a bad day one if they have a really good day two and three. I mean, it happens every year. So, um, this is just the first of three courses with these players, and we're gonna see. And that's part of the evaluation too. Is like some guys
Yeah.
look great on day one and then fade, and that's not good for your stock either. I mean, it's better than looking bad all 3 days, but
Yeah.
these scouts want to see how players adapt. Can you pick up tendencies of your opponents quickly, in just a few days? And can you learn some tricks? Can you adapt? Can you take coaching in a short period of time? Because you don't have a lot of opportunity to get coached in the NFL. I mean, you do get coached, but it's like, in terms of on-field practice time, pretty limited. So like, they want to see, like, how quickly can you take what we're telling you and put it in your game. Can you show us that? And teams really value that stuff too. So, it's it's a good class. It's a good class in most of the spots that the Falcons need. So I hope that over the next couple days we're gonna find some big time contributors. And we know the Falcons love drafting Senior Bowl players. So there's a decent
Yes.
chance that we're looking at multiple Falcons picks this week in Mobile. So we'll see how that develops. But Tre'Shon, thanks again. Appreciate you coming out, and I appreciate your time, guys. He's Tre'Shon Diaz at Trey3Sean on the Twitters. Anything else you want to plug, Tre'Shon? I know we got notes from the two of us that are going to be up on the site here in a little bit. So if you guys are looking for written stuff, there'll be some there too. Anything else you want to plug tonight?
Yeah, I'm just Tre'Shon.io. Go check out the website. That's going to take you to those notes that are going to be coming out and all of the socials. So if there's any other little notes or any other things like that that you're looking for, I'll have it tweeted out, anything like that. So, Tre'Shon.io. Go give it a check.
Absolutely. Go check it out, guys. And yeah, I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic Kevin on the Twitters as well. Like I said, we'll have our notes up on the falcoholic.com here shortly. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm gonna see if we can do a big in-person live for tomorrow's Falcoholic live show. See if we can rope Aaron Freeman into this thing too.
Right.
So we'll see how big we can make this thing. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again to Underdog Fantasy and to BetOnline for sponsoring today's episode. We appreciate everyone who's donated to the fundraiser. If you'd like to do that, you can do that offline as well. For those of you that missed the show live, link is in the show description. You can also find a link in my Twitter profile as well if you'd prefer to do Venmo or stuff like that. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. We will be back on Wednesday for our regularly scheduled Falcoholic Live, possibly in-person extravaganza show. But until then, guys, we'll be continuing to grind these guys at tomorrow's practice and also on Thursday. So we will see you guys real soon here on the Falcoholic Live once again. Until next time, guys, have a great